Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we have another gameplay lined up just for you. This week I'm playing my brand new Derevi Wizard Tribal, Tony is playing his Bontu the Glorified deck, Harry is playing Karn Silver Golem, and Tom, who's new to the channel, is playing his 5-color Sliver Queen God deck. For openers, I keep Flooded Strand, Gaia's Cradle, Forest, Counterspell, Mirror Entity, Temple Garden, and Gavany Township. Tony keeps Ingaruk's Wake, 2 Swamps, Bone Splinters, Damnation, Terrain Generator, and Falcon Wrath Noble. Harry had to mulligan to 6 but kept Storm Cauldron, Encroaching Wastes, Urza's Tower, Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, Oblivion Stone, and Blink Moth Urn. And Tom's hand had Savage Lands, Arcane Lighthouse, 2 Plains, a Forest, Starfield of Nyx, and Rites of Flourishing. Tom wins the die roll and starts us off. For his first turn, Tom plays Savage Lands tapped and passes to Tony. Tony drops a Terrain Generator and passes to me. For my first land, I play a Flooded Strand and pass to Harry. Harry plays Urza's Tower and I crack Flooded Strand to go find Breeding Pool. Tom plays a Forest and passes to Tony. Tony plays a Snow-Covered Swamp and passes to me. I play a Sunpetal Grove and pass to Harry. Harry's turn, he drops Tomb of the Spirit Dragon and passes to Tom. Tom plays a Plains and then casts Rites of Flourishing before playing his second Plains and passing to Tony. Side note, just to keep things simple, for as long as Rites of Flourishing are on the field, everyone draws 2. Tony's a big fan of Rites of Flourishing and he drops Nykthos and Swamp before casting Hedron Archive. For my turn, I play a Forest and Prairie Streams tapped before passing to Harry. Harry plays Encroaching Wastes and Haunted Fengraf as his lands for turn, and then casts Oblivion Stone. Let's just say that Tom is not a fan of this. Tom only plays 1 land and it's Arcane Lighthouse before passing to Tony. For Tony's turn, he drops a Swamp and then taps 3 to cast Bontu the Glorified. He also drops Vampire Hexmage, which is a great way to deal with Harry's divinity counters that he's able to put onto permanents thanks to his Oblivion Stone. I have a pretty boring turn and I draw 2 islands and play 2 islands before passing to Harry. Harry's turn has Reliquary Tower come to play and he casts Blink Moth Urn and then passes to Tom. Tom unfortunately misses his land drop, but thankfully he's drawn into the next best thing and casts Soul Ring before passing to Tony. For Tony's turn, he plays a Swamp, casts Pawn of Ulamog, then activates Shrine of Nykthos generating 5 black mana, and drops Falcon Wrath Noble before passing to me. At the end of Tony's turn, I activate Derevi's ability, bringing her into play and tapping Falcon Wrath Noble. For my turn, I play Temple Garden, taking 2 and Gavany Township as my lands. I then cast Fyndhorn Elves and Mirror Entity before moving to combat. During my combat step, Derevi smashes into Tony for 2 and I untap Gavany Township. During Harry's first main phase, he gets 2 colorless mana thanks to the Urn, and plays Mishra's Factory, then taps 4 lands to cast Staff of Nin. With nothing else, he passes to Tom. Tom's turn still has him missing lands, but he gets 1 mana thanks to the Urn from Soul Ring, and ends his first main phase as well as his turn by casting Heliod, God of the Sun. Tony also gains 1 colorless mana in his first main phase, and he plays a Swamp and taps it to cast Thought Vessel. Preferring to keep his stuff on the defense, Tony passes to me. For my turn, during my first main phase, I unfortunately don't get any mana because I'm not part of the cool kids, and I play an island and Gaia's Cradle. I then tap my Fyndhorn Elves and the Gaia's Cradle to cast Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing the elves. I find Yisan, the Wanderer Bard, and I move to combat. During my combat step, Derevi goes swinging at Tom and Mirror Entity goes at Harry. In response to their no blocks, I activate Gavany Township, giving Derevi and Mirror Entity a +1/+1 counter. With my 2 triggers, I untap Gavany Township and Gaia's Cradle. With nothing else, I pass to Harry. At the end of my turn, Harry taps Staff of Nin to ping Vampire Hexmage, which Tony lets die and he gets a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token. During Harry's first main phase, he generates 3 colorless mana thanks to Urn and plays Mage Ring Network. He then uses some of the floating colors to cast Grim Monolith before dropping an Endbringer and a Trading Post and passing his turn to Tom. Unfortunately for Tom, he misses his land drop again, but he's able to get 1 colorless mana thanks to Harry's Urn, and he casts Karametra, God of the Harvest. With too many cards in hand, he's forced to discard Purphoros before passing to Tony. Tony draws 2 Swamps and plays 2 Swamps and gets 2 colors thanks to the Urn. Using his floating mana and 3 of his swamps, Tony casts Shriekmaw. Shriekmaw in turn kills Mirror Entity, and Tony has Falcon Wrath Noble drain Tom for 1. Deciding to keep all of his creatures back, Tony passes to me. At the end of Tony's turn, I activate Gavany Township to put another +1/+1 counter on all my creatures. For my turn, I play a Plains, and Harry realizes I should have exiled Eldritch Evolution. After correcting my mistake, I activate the Wanderer Bard to go find a Llanowar Elves. I then pay 3 mana and 2 life to cast Birthing Pod, and Birthing Pod away Llanowar Elves to go find Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. Moving to combat, Derevi swings into Tom for 4 commander damage, and I get to untap Yisan the Wanderer Bard. For Harry's turn, he generates 5 mana thanks to Blink Moth Urn, and plays Urza's Power Plant before casting Kozilek, the Great Distortion. I pump the brakes at this point, casting Counterspell on Kozilek as Harry's getting out of control with his ramp. Harry still gets to draw 4 cards though, and he moves to plan B, tapping a few lands and casting Storm Cauldron. For Tom's turn, we see Woodland Cemetery come into play, and he taps 2 land and Soul Ring to cast Utter End, exiling Storm Cauldron. He bounces 2 of his lands back to his hand, and replays one of the planes. Seeing as all of his creatures who are enchantments currently are indestructible, Tom moves to cast Wrath of God, wiping the board. I really don't want to lose my board, so I cast Negate to counter it. With nothing else, Tom passes to Tony. It's 2 colorless mana in his first main phase, and he taps 2 swamps to cast Mind Slicer, and follows it up by casting Viscera Seer. Moving to his end step, Tony Hadoukens Harry, and Harry responds by tapping Endbringer to kill Viscera Seer. In response, Tony sacrifices the Seer to itself, scrying 1, and uses Falconwrath Noble's triggered ability to drain Harry for 1. He also gets a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. For my turn, despite drawing 2 cards, I don't really draw any action, so I tap Jace Vryn's Prodigy to draw a card and discard a card. This prompts Jace to want to flip, and in response, Harry taps Endbringer and Staff of Nin to kill the wizard. Unfortunately, this forces my hand a little bit, and I'm forced to activate Gavany Township to save Jace. With Jace no longer in peril, he's able to flip, and I draw a card and discard a card. With all of that resolving, I activate Yisan the Wanderer Bard's ability to find a 2-drop, and Quasali Pridemage hits the field. Fun fact, he's also a wizard. Moving to combat, Derevi swings by himself at Harry, activating Quasali Pridemage's Exalted, and Harry takes 6 commander damage. I choose to untap Yisan the Wanderer Bard, and in my second main phase, I sacrifice Quasali Pridemage to destroy Oblivion Stone. For Harry's turn, he once again generates a ton of mana thanks to Blinkmoth Urn, and he casts Oracle's Vault and activates its first ability. He exiles and immediately casts Lightning Greaves before equipping them to Endbringer. Harry then plays Tower of the Magistrate and Mystifying Maze. Harry then casts Mere Retriever and Meekstone before Harry then uses Endbringer to draw a card and casts Sculpting Steel as a second copy of Blinkmoth Urn. For Tom's turn, he once again misses his land drop, but he casts Prismatic Omens, which will help with his fixing. He then casts Starfield of Nyx, which makes a bunch of his enchantments now creatures. Tom then casts Erebos, God of the Dead, who actually triggers Karametra, and he gets to go find a forest or a plains card. Tom then moves to combat, swinging both Karametra and Heliod at Tony. Tony takes 9, as Heliod and Karametra are a 4/4 and a 5/5 respectively thanks to Starfield of Nyx. With his combat step over, Tom passes to Tony, but Harry decides to kill Falconwrath Noble at the end of Tom's turn. With Noble dying, Harry gets drained for 1, and Tony gains a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. For Tony's turn, he plays a Swamp, and then casts Zulaport Cutthroat to replace the Falconwrath Noble he just lost. Wanting to punish everyone, Tony then casts Ingaruk's Wake. This goes unopposed as I no longer have any counterspells in my hand. In response to this, Harry taps Endbringer, killing Zulaport Cutthroat. With Cutthroat dying, we all take 1, but Tony doesn't gain 1 thanks to Erebos. And the board, except for Tony's creatures, gets wiped away. Also, in a strange turn of events, some of Tom's enchantments do because they're also creatures. Moving to combat, Pawn of Ulamog smashes into Harry, and with nothing else, Tony passes to me. For my turn, I only draw 1 card, and I cast Arcanomancer, returning Counterspell to my hand. I then activate Birthing Pod, sacrificing Arcanomancer to go find Seedborn Muse. I then uptick Jace, giving Mindslicer -2/-0, and cast Derevi, who untaps Gaia's Cradle as she enters the battlefield. On Harry's untap step, I also untap, and he draws 2 cards before moving to his first main phase where he generates a ton of mana. Harry decides to spend some of his millions of mana, and moves to cast Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and for the second time this game, I counterspell one of Harry's Kozileks. Harry then casts Karn Silver Golem, his commander, and drops Inventor's Fair, cracking the Fair to go find Voltaic Construct. Harry then casts Voltaic Construct, and I respond by overloading Cyclonic Rift to bounce all of my opponent's boards back to their hand. Rift resolves and Voltaic Construct enters the battlefield alone. Harry then recasts Grim Monolith and Lightning Greaves, equipping the Greaves onto the construct. Harry then pays 6 mana to recast Staff of Nin and passes to Tom. Tom has a relatively quick turn as he recasts Soul Ring and then casts Open the Vault to get back a few enchantments, most notably Perforos, God of the Forge. With nothing else, he passes to Tony. Tony's turn also has him recasting a bunch of spells, and he starts off by casting Hedron Archive, tapping the Archive to cast Thought Vessel, tapping Thought Vessel and 2 swamps to cast Bontu, and finishes with a Blood Artist before passing his turn. And at the end of Tony's turn, I activate Gavany Township to pump my creatures. For my turn, I play Manamo, School at Water's Edge, and then cast Knight of the Reliquary, sacrificing the Knight to Birthing Pod to go find Sakashima the Imposter, who comes into play as a copy of Derevi. Moving to combat, I swing Derevi and Seedborn Muse at Harry. Harry declares no blocks, and I activate Gavany Township to give a +1/+1 counter to all of my creatures. With both creatures hitting Harry, I get 4 untaps, and the notable targets are Gaia's Cradle and Birthing Pod. In my second main phase, I birthing pot away Sakashima to go find a 4-drop in the form of Glenelendra Archmage. Harry's turn unfortunately quickly seals out the game, and he plays 2 lands before casting Metalworker and Karn Silver Golem. Harry is then able to generate infinite mana thanks to moving the Greaves back and forth between Metalworker and the Construct, and then uses Karn Silver Golem to animate Staff of Nin, making it a creature, and is able to tap it and untap it as many times as he'd like, pinging us all to death. Game review time. Well, this is the first time I was able to play my Derevi Wizard Tribal deck. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of things I got to do. I got to use Birthing Pot a million times. It was great. It was also really good that Harry was able to catch my Eldritch Evolution flub, as I was probably going to use Arcanomancer to bring it back. Tony's Bontu deck was really cool. It seemed to have a really big self-sacrifice theme, but unfortunately he wasn't able to really punish anyone. I probably, in response to Cyclonic Rift, would have sacrificed Mind Slicer, as Harry's hand was huge at that point. Tom's deck underperformed unfortunately due to the fact that he was land screwed for most of the game. We did film a second game which showed the deck in a significantly better light, and you'll get to look forward to watching that soon. Harry's Karn deck was pretty cool. I'm glad that we didn't lose to the Mycosynth Lattice blow up all of our land strategy. I have no hard feelings for losing to the combo. We left him alone for a long time and he fought through a bunch of counterspells to get to where he was. Please be sure to tune in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video, with another one popping up during the week. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta, or check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below or in the About section. And as always, thank you all for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.